Hello everyone, my name is DJC, also known as Sean from Big Bang Radio, Studio 67, here with Nam Wayne. Nam, how are you?
Doing well. How about you, Sean?
I'm doing pretty well. Good to have you here today.
Thank you
Let's
very much.
uh let's get right into it. How would you describe your style of music?
I would say, well, there are a few different genre names that I think it could fit into. One, there's garage, maybe garage punk, second wave psychedelia, proto punk, or what I like to call it is cassette rock, because it's definitely cassette and it's definitely rock.
All right. So, what about it makes it cassette rock? What qualities does it have that firmly in your mind put it there?
Well, I guess it's a certain tape saturation, that comes from the cassette recording. And, I could imagine that sounding shallow, that I would focus on the style as a part of the genre, but how that seems to really make a difference in terms of the music that I like. Almost all of the music that I like is lo-fi analog, or at least almost all of the recordings I like. It just feels more, I don't know, feels more real.
Okay.
Something like
So you did record your last album on cassette tape rather than digitally. Why choose cassette tape over things like a wax cylinder or stone tablet?
Well, I mean, I tried the Stone tablets,
Okay.
but they just, it sounds kind of like a little scratchy for my taste.
Okay. I can see the logic there.
But instead of digital, I've recorded a good number of songs in the past, and mostly it's been on digital. In the early 2000s, I heard this album called Suburban Light by a band called The Clientele, and I was so impressed with the entire album, and a big part of that was the recording quality. It sounded to me like it was recorded in the 60s, not just some kind of retro reference to the 60s, but it sounded like it was actually recorded in the 60s, like a Pink Floyd album like Uma Guma or something like that. And I assumed that they had used, 2-inch tape or something. I was so into it that I actually contacted them, and I got them to let me make a documentary about them. I followed them around Raleigh, Durham in North Carolina for the Merge Records Festival. And during that shoot, I was able to ask the singer, Alistair MacLean, how they recorded it. And it turned out they just recorded it on cassette,
Huh.
multi-track cassette, M488.
Neat that you've been
Yeah, so,
recording around our neck of the woods. We're
yeah,
not an hour away from Raleigh, Durham.
and we probably, we drove all around that area late at night. We were like looking at cows, and it was a dream come true because they're just one of my absolute favorite bands. This is Nam Wayne, and you're about to listen to my song "Falling on the Waves."
Talking old school, crossing that street by the barricade.
if your music was an animal, what animal would it be?
Well, definitely something in the weasel family. I'm thinking a fisher, because it's not sort of a household animal name that would be in a children's book. It's a, you know, it, it's not a big lumbering animal. It's more compact and sleek and fierce.
Mm-hmm.
It's fierce, but it's compact and fierce. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say a fisher.
Okay. So then, since your music is this Fisher, how did you come to make it the Fisher? How did you discover your passion for music and your want to pursue it?
Well, when I was in high school, when I was maybe about 15, I wrote my first song as a way to reach out to one of my classmates who had just gotten out of rehab. We were in the back of the class. We were watching, I think, Gallipoli by Peter Weir,
Mm-hmm.
and I showed her the lyrics, and it was very affecting for her. And since then, I've been writing songs ever since, and ever since then, I've also seen the act of songwriting as sort of a direct communicative act.
Okay. So then, was this in Pennsylvania? Have you always lived in Pennsylvania?
I grew up in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
outside of Princeton. I've lived in Pennsylvania for a good amount of time. I went to UPenn a number of years ago. I also have lived in New York City for a bit.
How do you think where you're from influences your sound?
Well, I would say growing up in the suburbs, and I don't know if this is the suburbs in general or just particularly the suburbs that I grew up in, affected the sound. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, but I bought into the idea that the suburbs represented a kind of cookie cutter existence that had to either be conformed to or rebelled against. Instead, I was much more interested in finding what was real and alive about the suburbs and the world around me. There were a lot of sort of feral households. Every household kind of was like its own nation state. It had its own rules and laws, and it was pretty magical. You would have one a household where maybe the parents were hoarders, and maybe a parent would be kind of pining away in a deep depression in one room, and the kids would be smoking in the other room, and you'd hear like this horrifying rock bands of the time, like Psychic TV or Death in June playing, like wafting from the other room, and it's like kind of makes your soul sink a little bit, but it's exciting. And then, not too far away, you'd have a drama club cast party where the kids are sort of waiting for the sunrise, on someone's driveway, still dressed in the vestiges of their costumes from Hair the night before. And so we have all that. And certainly that kind of imagery affected the album, for sure.
Okay. So then, when asked about your album, you state that you want listeners to hate the album, but then come to realize that they love the music. How does this viewpoint come to be? And are there any songs that on the album that you hated but then came to life?
Well, it's I didn't hate any of the actual songs and then like them. I pretty much like all of the songs. Sometimes I'm a little bit on the fence about whether what's it called, Second Thoughts fits in stylistically in some, but generally speaking, that sentiment comes from the fact that I found a lot of the art that has really impacted me the most, and that I've remembered the most has it's kind of traumatized me a little bit at first, and I've hated it at first. The first time I hear it, it's kind of monstrous to me, and and then there's a kind of a process of wanting to assimilate that trauma and process it, which makes you want to listen to it over and over again, and then after a while you kind of master it, and you have a sense of accomplishment from that. And this could be the case in movies or music or whatever. A lot of times in a movie there's a disturbing scene scene to the beginning. Star Wars, it's Darth Vader choking the rebel pilot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically kind of vibe.
All right. So then, which tracks on the album really are your favorites, and what do they mean to you?
Well, you know, different ones are my favorites at different times. I would say that, you know, like what I like about On Drugs and In Love With You. At this moment, that's one of my favorites, largely because it seems to be getting the most play at radio stations, which is interesting because it's the most lo-fi. It's a demo that I threw on. You know, everything else, nothing else was really demos, but I just threw it on as is. And for me, that song allowed me to kind of create a persona, that's one thing that I think songs do for me, is they allow me to evolve as a person, because I might have some notion that that I could bring more humor into my life or something like that. And in the case of On Drugs and In Love With You, it was kind of a courtship persona. You know, how can you be playful and you know, within the realm of like respecting who you're talking to, but also be kind of like playfully dismissive. And how do you find, you know, what's a good timbre for that? So that's what that song means to me. And also, I was inspired by working at the Princeton University store.
Mm-hmm.
They would always play this, you know, schlocky oldies radio where the big punchline would always be like, "In my heart." And we were using a lot of tape guns, and so thus the line, "There's always extra tape guns in my heart."
I love it. I love it. So now, on another note, you were recently featured in Destroy/Exist. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure. Well, to start with, since then, I've been featured in a lot of blogs, including some larger ones, The Skinny in Scotland, and you know, blogs in Italy, and I'm going to be in a few more. But the thing with Destroy Exist is that it's the first, not only the first blog that I was in, but it's the official acceptance of any kind that my music has gotten. And so that was a big deal to me. I remember that moment. I was, you know, kind of emailing the blogs at a cafe, and I got back this positive response, you know, which was a first for me, because I hadn't really ever reached out to the world before. And I remember standing up to take a walk, and as I stood up, I felt like I had suddenly down this baggage that I had this kind of this sort of self-justifying, defensive conversations that had gone on in my head. I was able to put them down because I felt like affirmed by the world. I felt like I was getting some success. So for a moment, I kind of glimpsed how somebody who attained some success and some self-realization is perhaps able to develop a more generous spirit.
Mm-hmm. So then, once you had that moment of self-realization, did you sort of now say, all right, I'm really an artist? Or...
you know what? I said that I'm really like now I'm a professional.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that moment before of now I'm really an artist. When one of my rock heroes wrote to me and said that he thought that one of my songs had visionary lyrics.
Oh wow!
But and I went out and I bought myself a Gandalf pipe, like a long wooden, because I was like, that's like the pipe of heroes, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, I did actually feel like now I'm legitimate in some way. Now I'm sort of a self-respecting professional.
Mm-hmm. So now that you consider yourself a self-respecting professional, have any grand goals?
Well, all right. So Okay, ultimately, if I'm to be honest, what I would like is for my grave to be worn away and disintegrating from the kids, several generations of adoring fans. I would love for people to jump the fence into the cemetery and for lovers to drink wine by my grave, like futuristic silvery wine.
Mm-hmm.
And I want lonely people to come to my grave and speak to it out loud. Although, I mean, more realistically, I want to find my people.
Mm-hmm.
This is Nam Wayne, and you're about to listen to my song "On Drugs and in Love with You."
Running round the ceiling and bouncing off the walls. You've got me feeling like a boy who wants to play with dolls. I see you like wearing socks. I'm a sock person too. What can I do? What can I do? I'm just a mad, mad carrot-eating fool on drugs and in love with you. I'm just a mad, mad carrot-eating fool on drugs and in love with you. I wanna sleep all through the night and hear your breath. I wanna wake up to a pillow-drunk frenzy of death. Sometimes you tape up boxes and they fall apart, but there's always extra tape guns in my heart. 'Cause I'm just a mad, mad carrot-eating fool on drugs and in love with you. Got me running round the ceiling and bouncing off the walls. You've got me feeling like a boy who wants to play with dolls. I see you like wearing socks. I'm a sock person too. What can I do? What can I do? I'm just a mad, mad carrot-eating fool on drugs and in love with you. I'm just a mad, mad carrot-eating fool on drugs and in love with you.
So then, on another note, good, bad, or embarrassing, what has been your absolutely most memorable moment as an artist?
Well, there really have been like so many.
Mm-hmm.
One of them that stands out is last winter I did I fasted for 4 days in the Chihuahuan desert in order to just kind of renew my sense of vision and inspiration. Maybe because I like wit and everything, but ultimately I feel like wittiness is sort of prosaic. So I wanted to, and I feel like desperation is much more beautiful in a lot of ways. So I wanted to get myself into a sort of a more acutely desperate state. I went out to a remote spot and fasted for 4 days. It was pretty hellish. And on the last night of it, part of this sort of protocol is you build a circle of stones, and as the sun sets, you step into the circle of stones, and you're not allowed to leave until the first rays of morning sort of set you free, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, sleep deprivation and hunger and I guess lack of visual stimuli I wasn't hallucinating, but my imaginings were very kind of vivid, and they came very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was just dying, waiting for the sunrise. It was taking forever. It seemed like I was going by movie time. I was going by, like, why do they make people wait so long for the sun to rise? It's just irresponsible. And then I started to, my mind started to wander, and I was like, it's kind of corny, but I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to imagine my spirit animal. I'm going to find a spirit animal. So there was a seagull, that I imagined that turned, I was like, are you my spirit animal? And it turned into this toothy, like sketchy, white-feathered Archaeopteryx, and it started to devour me. And then I was in its belly, and there were like disemboweled baby birds and like white mice with lidless red eyes, and I was asking them if they're my spirit animal, because I want to be humble, I don't necessarily think a spirit animal has to be highfalutin or whatever. And everything was kind of decaying, and then like a young girl walked up to me and handed me an infant wrapped in an Archaeopteryx wing, and then the infant turned to dust. And then, I climbed a mountain made of women, and then I opened my heart up, and in this vision, it was a really dense black spiky cacti. It opened up, and then another layer of it, the same kind of dense cacti, opened up, and then another. At the very core in my heart was a feast. People were having a beautiful aromatic feast of which I was not allowed to partake.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, a star rose on the horizon, which looked unlike any that I had ever seen, which I'm pretty sure was the morning star, also known as the evening star, also known actually as Lucifer, which I think is actually Venus.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about this star is that it actually has a finite countable number of points, or at least that's what I saw, and I'm pretty sure that that's real.
Mm-hmm.
You can count 16 rays coming from it, whereas other stars, they don't exactly have rays per se. But I was so happy to see this because I knew that it heralded the sun, and the horizon did get lighter, and the mountains on the horizon were lit in this deep red extraterrestrial looking fog, and it was such a privilege to be seeing this. And I was so glad that this fast was over because, man, yeah, it was pretty hellish, and I knew I was going to get to eat the Doritos that I had in my car. And after that morning, I had this thought, what makes a song good? What to from that was it just makes you feel alive. It doesn't have to make you more energetic. It doesn't have to be energetic. It doesn't have to be positive even. It just has to make you feel alive.
Yeah. I don't even remember what the question was, but I like the answer.
Well, it was the most memorable moment.
Yes. Either way, I still like the answer.
Thank you.
So, time for the cheese.
Okay.
If you could play with any artist, musician, past or present, who would it be and what would you play?
Well, you know what? This might sound kind of strange, but I actually really like the musicians who I play with.
Mm-hmm.
I feel really extremely lucky to be playing with the people who I do play with. I don't necessarily feel like I would need to play with someone else. There are certain, really, almost one of the requirements of somebody who I would want to really collaborate with is that they are not yet known. They have not yet had their big accomplishments. So they have this hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps they have free time. Yeah, I think that's the best I can answer for that.
All right. So then, now that your first album has been released, what's next?
Well, firstly, before I move on to another album, my plan is to send this album to every single sort of artistic soul who I am personally aware of on the planet, which, there's not that many because my awareness only stretches so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna, if I can find the contact information, I'm gonna send it to Harmony Korine, who directed Gummo. I'm gonna send it to maybe Gaspar Noé, who did Enter the Void. Vincent Gallo. I mean, those are all film directors, but I'll also send it to other musicians, and and then as far as other recordings, other music, I would like to. I don't plan to record an album per se after this. I plan instead to release songs as I write them, as I record them, as singles and or EPs that can maybe later, if they fit together, be retrospectively put onto an album. Because I feel like that will allow me to put more individual focus into the songs and the recordings.
Okay. So then, what is the best way for fans to keep in touch with what's going on with Nam Wayne?
Well, I would say, the best way to reach me would be to namwayne.bandcamp.com, and you can email me there. And I'm very, I welcome that. I'm not so far in my career where I disdain people writing to me. And then there's also, you can just look up Nam Wayne on Facebook, and it's actually at www.namwayne444.com.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Nam, for coming to talk with us. It has been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah. All right, have a good one.
You too. This is Nam Wayne, and here's my song, Friend Crush.
How did we never meet? You come out when I go to sleep. I see you standing on the corner. Gotta let you know I like your persona. You dropped out of the best high school, smoked a lot of drugs and been abused. That's why I wanna be friends with you, How did we never meet? We grew up on the same dark street. I see plainclothes hippies outside your house. I see smoke rings from a car seat couch. You come from where the sidewalks bend, where weathered boots and dry leaves blend, where decades don't divide our end. People who say they don't want to be cool, they've never had a friend crush like you. They've never had a friend crush like you. So what I'm gonna do is be friends with you. How did we never meet? You come out when I go to sleep. I see you standing on the corner. Gotta let you know I like your persona. How did we never meet? We grew up on the same dark street.